Falconcast, and of course that means AJ Hoffman will be joining us shortly. Welcome in. I hope everybody's having a great week. We got preseason football tonight. Astros take 2 out of 3 from the Orioles, including one of the more exciting finishes to a game you'll see. And we're going to have fun today because it's always fun when AJ's here. As always, Falconcast is brought to you by a lot of great sponsors. Please support them. And if you want to be a sponsor, there's still some room. We're pretty close to adding a third show. It's the Falconcast at yahoo.com. If you're interested, just hit me up. Or if you have friends who might be interested, or if you just want to support the show, just hit me up there and I'll let you know how you can do it. But let's not waste any time. Let's bring in the legendary AJ Hoffman to the show. What's going on, brother?
Hello, Freddie. How are you, my friend?
I'm fantastic.
Good to hear it.
Fantastic. So, what you been up to this week? Besides work?
Yeah, that's it. Work is it. It's we're getting close to football time, so it's fast and furious at me now.
How? We've always talked about preseason and stuff, and you got 2 games tonight. I know a lot of the guys will bet preseason there or do picks for them. I mean, where do you stand on that? I know back in the day it wasn't a big priority for you.
It is still not a big priority for me. I don't get it. Like I think there's some ways to look at this. Like there's teams that you know there's a reason for the quarterbacks to be motivated. I think Tampa's a good example of that, where they're saying, okay, Baker, you're going to start game 1. Kyle Trask is going to start game 2. The assumption is both these guys are going to give top effort because they're in a real position battle. I think New England is a team. We saw last year the Patriots use Bailey Zappi. They sat Mac Jones. So I wouldn't be surprised if you see that happen again. So I think you're going to see a lot of Bailey Zappi in the preseason. I think you're going to see more than typical of Mac Jones for an established starter.
Yeah, it's interesting. I was talking to my guy Brandon today, who bets on anything, including which Roach will be the fastest if you see 2 of them. And he likes Texans first half because he thinks that the Texans are going to come out and try to set a tone with a new head coach. And, and if C.J. Stroud can actually play, then they probably get, a couple scores early and get the lead. And then I guess it depends after that. That's why I kind of don't hate the first half, because if they do all that and then bring in Davis Mills, it could go to hell in a hurry. So, if they bring in Case Keenum, I'd feel a lot better about their chances for the whole game. But Bill Belichick's already said pretty much, I'm going to play with all the rookies. I want to see what those guys can do. So, I don't hate that, but I'm not exactly emptying out my account to go play it either. But, but those are angles I don't mind. I just, we got real football here in a few weeks. Why not just save the bankroll for that, in my opinion?
That's where I'm at. So I agree. Davis Mills is not particularly appetizing, and if you can make a bet and avoid him some kind of way, I think that's the way to do it. But I don't know that I'll have a real bet on an actual preseason. I might bet the Ravens because the Ravens never lose in the preseason. That's all I know.
That's true. And the Ravens have actually looks like they're going to sign your guy Jadeveon Clowney.
Yeah, a big get for their defense if that's what ends up happening. Clowney's one of these guys. Clowney, Dalvin Cook, Kareem Hunt. It seems like all these guys are better than a lot of guys that are on teams right now, yet they're just sitting around. And I think some of them may be waiting for the right opportunity with the right team. And there's as good a spot as any. Like Baltimore's as good a spot as any, if you ask me, for Clowney.
Yeah, and like Kareem Hunt went to Indianapolis and did not come back with a contract, which tells me the Colts are as dysfunctional as we think they are. Because especially without Taylor, and I don't know, man. If I'm Kareem Hunt, I think there's probably a better opportunity out there for me with a team that might actually make the playoffs.
I think you're probably right. I don't know who that would be. He went to the Colts and he went to the Saints, and apparently he's more interested in the Saints than the Colts. The thing is, both of those jobs turn into backup jobs at some point, you assume. Jonathan Taylor may or may not come back, I don't know. But obviously, if he does, your job's now a backup. We know for a fact Kamara's going to come back. And they already brought in Williams from Detroit, so I would expect that's likely that he ends up being a backup somewhere. But it also wouldn't shock me if he waits around and tries to find a better job. Like somebody's going to get hurt during camp.
Right, and during the season, even if you wait till week 1 or 2, you may start as a backup, but it doesn't take much for a running back to get to be a starter pretty quickly in this league with all the injuries that happen. And I think he's intriguing, and I think these guys are kind of smart to wait around. Dalvin Cook, Jadeveon Clowney. I mean, they don't have the cap money available now, but you could kind of pick your situation and gamble on yourself a little bit, and hopefully get into and to me, if you're with Clowney and with anybody, I mean, to me, the Ravens are a good bet. I mean, that's a good opportunity. So, All right, let's move on to. I want to get a little bit of Astros in here.
Headphones.
What's that? No, it's not.
A lot of people saying I'm echoing.
You sound fine.
I can hear myself through your laptop.
Really? Maybe turn the volume down on your audio.
All right.
Yeah, because I never use headphones. I use the laptop. Sorry, guys. We'll get this worked out. And try something now.
Test. Yeah, it's still. I can hear it too. I can hear myself back through your headphones or through your microphone.
Okay. Well, I don't know what to do about that because it's never been a big deal. Let me try turning some things down here. You still hear it?
Check. Not as much now.
Okay. I can barely hear you now, which is a problem, but we'll get there. Anyway, so I wanted to ask you about a guy that we talked about a lot back in the day, who I thought was dead or on a beach in Mexico getting high. The Astros bring up John Singleton this week.
What's funny is I went to an Aviators versus Space Cowboys game here in Vegas like last week, 2 weeks ago, and Jonathan Singleton was starting. We had good seats. Listen, it's minor league baseball, but Jonathan Singleton threw a baseball to my kid after one of the innings. He looked pretty good. He's looked good lately. I'm impressed. I don't know if it's going to hold up, but it's probably better than what Jose Abreu's been.
Yeah, and everybody says there's still an echo. I don't know what else to do. This is the same setup we've used now for every single week. So, but
you want to kick me out and try again?
Yeah, let's do that. We're gonna kick AJ out and try to get him back.
And if you have some headphones to plug into your laptop, that probably will do the trick. Like if you have earbuds.
I do somewhere, but it's gonna take me an hour to dig through my closet to get them.
Okay.
It's in my bag of divorce crap. So.
All right. Well, kick me out. I'll be right back.
Just a sec. And while we're doing that, I'm going to tell you about the Phoenix on Westheimer. Great place. Guess what's coming this weekend? Premier League Soccer. They're the best soccer bar in town. They'll have everything you want to watch. They still have the Women's World Cup. They're open for all games of that, no matter what time it starts. They'll have a kitchen open, but they have to stay within TABC hours for alcohol. Fantastic food, fantastic staff. And, they got, my favorite bar staff in the city with Derek and Bailey and Camilla. I mean, they're all just great people. And Vu, of course, runs an amazing place. The food is just through the roof. And you can go and check it out, Phoenix on Westheimer. And then make sure you're at our fundraiser on the 26th. That will be over at 4820 Navigation. And you've heard me talk about this for a guy named Daniel who was paralyzed from the chest down. And, he's got a kid. He's a single parent. Can't work, so we're raising money for him. Put together an amazing list of bands. There's going to be amazing food. So DJ Rising is going to play at 5. We've got a mariachi band at 6, Jesse Salinas at 7, and of course Dead Money at 8. So that'll be on August 26th, 3 to 9 p.m. So make plans to be there now. All right, let's try this again, and let's see if it works. Sometimes it does. We'll see. It's just like hitting the reset button.
We'll see. I've taken. I think it's still going to be echoey, but I've taken off my headset. I'm talking through my mic and headphone, or my mic and laptop now.
All right, we'll see what the people say because I actually know where my headphones are. so I can go grab them if this doesn't work. So we'll just see how it goes. People people will let us know. But we're talking about Jonathan. Well, now he's John Singleton. He
Yeah,
was
dropped the
Jonathan,
Athens.
but he's the perfect example about why we talk about prospects are just prospects, right? He was their number one prospect at the time. Okay, Elm says it's still an echo. So how about this? You put your headphones back on. You give the people about 30 seconds on that, and I'll grab mine and we'll see if that works. How's that? I love this stuff.
All right. So Jonathan Singleton, if you remember, he was offered the same deal. He and George Springer were offered the same deal, and George Springer didn't take his deal. Jonathan Singleton did and got 5 years and $10 million. Was wise of Jonathan Singleton because he was terrible for those 5 years, basically did nothing. Was also wise of George Springer because obviously he got a real payday at the end of it. But it was Jonathan Singleton, the idea that he's worked all the way back and is already made $10 million from the Astros organization. The idea that he's working his way back now is fascinating to me. And like I said, maybe a nice little boost because Jose Abreu's like after a quick peak is seemingly on his way back down. So we'll see if Jonathan Singleton has anything to offer this team. It wouldn't shock me if he comes up and sees big league pitching and turns back into a pumpkin. But in AAA, apparently he's been very, very good. Let's see. He played only 1 year for the Astros. Now he played a few more years than that. He just was parts of years. He didn't do very much. Freddie, are you back?
I am. I don't know. They said the echo went away when I left. So
is the echo still gone now that we're on together?
That's
because that's what I think. What was happening was my sound was coming through your microphone or through your speakers and then hitting your microphone. So we're good now.
But we're good. So. Yeah, I mean, I think he's an interesting story. I mean, what he spent 4 years out of the league and finally gets himself in shape, and managed to get back and had a good run there at AAA. But we'll see. It was AAA. I mean, I do think it'd be nice if he could give him something down the stretch until Abreu gets his act together. And Abreu is a guy that you thought would be better over the second half of the season, and he had one little stretch, and then he's been pretty terrible since. So, and they could use an extra bat. This race still isn't over, even for the wild card. I mean, you look at that wild card standings; those are pretty tight. And
yeah, and the fact that the Astros were able to take 2 out of 3 from the Orioles, they almost came back and swept it today, but that kept them in it. This was a real chance. Well, when the Astros were playing the Orioles and the Rangers were playing the A's, for the Rangers to kind of get some more separation, and it didn't happen. The Rangers got shut out by the A's the other day, so that helps. But yeah, the Astros holding serve and taking 2 out of 3 at Baltimore, that's a big series for them.
Yeah, and that's a good Orioles team, man. They're young. I don't think they have the pitching necessarily. I mean, they do on the back end, but I don't know if they have the starting pitching to be big winners in the playoffs. But man, they got a lot of young bats and a lot of guys that just have a huge upside. They kind of remind me of the Braves team from a couple years ago. Now I think that Braves team had better pitching, but they got all these young guys in the lineup that are at the beginning of their career and already playing at a high level.
I mean, it kind of reminds me of the Astros before the first World Series. And eventually the Astros had to go out and add like legit veteran starting pitching to put them over the hump. But once they did that, they were unstoppable. So the Orioles, I mean, if the Orioles ever decide to spend money like that, they could really have something there. The problem is they've always been kind of this felt like a cheap team. And the idea that their freaking broadcaster got suspended, over just saying the truth, saying that the team is better than they've been in the past, like that somehow that gets you suspended. But like they were saying it pointed to the fact that the Orioles have a low payroll, which they do. These are just truthful statements. If the Orioles ever go out and do some spending to put some veteran talent around their young guys, that's a scary team, man, because they do have some nice young pieces.
Yeah, they do. It's just you worry about that organization, right? It's like they've done very well building this group, but how long can you keep it together once these guys start coming off arbitration and things like that? Will they spend the money? Which I don't see any indication they will. And I think, I think firing your broadcaster for that just goes to show that ownership, well, they didn't fire him, they suspended him, and they brought him back because the media destroyed him.
Yeah.
Once the word got out. But the reality is if you're that kind of organization, I don't trust you to build something good
No,
and
probably not.
keep it. And they built it, but yeah, they could go out and add a couple arms, and I think they need to do it smart. They don't need to met it and go out and get Scherzer and Verlander, but they need to spend some money.
I think the way to do it is the way the Marlins used to do it when they would win. You wait until right at the end of your window when all these young guys are going to become, they're become free agents, and then you just go all in for that season. You spend a bunch of money, you get the best arms, you get some big you get some big bats in there, and you just go for it. Worked for the Marlins, and then the next year they were literally back in the basement because they lost everything. I could see something like that happening for the Orioles. And for the Orioles, that's awesome. Like if you're the Dodgers or the Mets or the Yankees, one of these super high payroll teams, that's not how you want to operate. But if you're a small market team and it's not conceivable for you to put a competitive team like that out for 5 years in a row, then wait until you're nearing the end of that window, get as good as you can get naturally, spend your ass off for 1 year and make a really big push for it. And if you get a World Series, man, that's awesome. But you see with Kansas, like when Kansas City won the World Series, you knew like as soon as Alex Gordon and Moustakas and Eric Hosmer, as soon as those guys become free agents, it's all going to fall apart again. And it did, as you see with the Royals in 2023, not so good.
I always kind of say, would you rather be the Nationals and build up, win a World Series, and then wind up sucking for 5 or 6 years and then do it again, or be a team like the Twins or the Guardians where you're nibbling every year, but you're never really going to get there?
I'd much rather be the team that wins it and then goes back to being a garbage team. Like, would you rather have the Royals decade or the Guardians decade? 1 for 1 and 0 for the Guardians are division more often than not, but I'll trade all those divisions. Like the Astros, you trade every got for one of those gold ones because those gold ones are how you're measured. So if you've got any series, they did.
Yeah, and I think you and I have always been of the same mind on this, but there's a lot of people who aren't. It's like, oh, you got to think about the future and keep your prospects and all this stuff. It's like, no, there's one goal in this game, and that's to win the World Series. And
prospects don't win you the World Series unless you give them to some other team and get back Justin Verlander. That's how you win.
Yeah.
Even remember the idea of prospect really almost cost the Nationals a shot at the World Series because their best young pitcher when they went the first time was Steven Strasburg, and a prospect that they didn't want to put too many innings on, even though he was clearly one of their best players. And they just said, we're not pitching him. And they didn't win. And had they had like a full blown workhorse, like a Verlander, or like when the CC Sabathia got rented and they pitched him like 14 innings a game and then pitched him on 3 days rest, 14 more innings. They didn't care. Like that's to me, that's how you win. And having these young guys is great. It's great to have depth, but all of that depth, if you're a competitive team, that farm depth should be used to add to your major league roster. Trade away at the deadline, add something that can help you right now. If you're in a position to win right now, and there's probably 10 teams in the league right now that have a real chance of winning. If you're not one of those 10 teams, stockpile prospects and trade away your players to get some of those prospects, and maybe they hit. But if you're one of those 10 teams, who cares?
I think I lost you there
Got
for
me,
a second.
Freddie?
Yeah, I got you now. Yeah.
Okay. I was saying, if you're one of those 10 teams, who cares about your prospects? Just get a competitive major league team on the field, whatever it takes, and make a run for a World Series.
Absolutely. And yeah, every now and then you're going to give up a guy who turns into a superstar, but that's 3 or 4 years down the road, and who knows where you are then. And, there's still people that bitch at Jeff Luhnow for trading Teoscar Hernandez for Nelson Liriano, who, by the way, scoreless inning in Game 7 helped you win the World Series. I'm sorry, I'll take that every time.
Yep.
I mean, it'd be nice to have him now, but would you trade that? Would you trade 2017 for that? I wouldn't.
Well, and think about when the Astros gave up Freddie Garcia for Randy Johnson, and that was really for just a shot at a World Series. And the Astros thought their team was ready to go for it. They traded away a young prospect. That young prospect had a long, solid career for the Mariners, but Randy Johnson was elite. And if Kevin Brown hadn't existed on this earth, the Astros might have won a World Series. But Kevin Brown did exist on this earth, and it ended up not mattering. But I still think, even when you look back in hindsight and you see what the Mariners got out of Freddie Garcia for all those years, I'd still take that chance and take the run at Randy Johnson, because without him, they didn't have a chance to win the World Series. It's kind of like the first Astros World Series. We said on the Blitz, we said, if they don't get a real starting pitcher to put at the top of this rotation, none of this matters. It's a cute story. But they cannot win a World Series without a top-level arm. And I took a lot of shit at the time, because I was saying, if you have to trade Alex Bregman for Chris Sale, do it. And, in hindsight, they made a better decision trading to get Justin Verlander.
Right.
But the truth was, they could win a World Series without Alex Bregman then. They could not have won a World Series without a top-level and not having up Bregman. But if they had to, Verlander and not, I still would have. I think the Astros still win the World Series that year.
I think Bregman still hates you for that. I don't think he's let that go, from what I hear. But anyway, hey, I'm going to take a second to tell you about Pick Me Events. And Pick Me will be at our fundraiser on the 26th. You'll be able to get your picture taken with whoever you want to help raise money for Daniel. And the cool thing is, these are professional pictures, man. I mean, this is world class. They do weddings, they do events, they do, you're doing a golf tournament, corporate event. They're storytellers, and they want to tell the story of your event. They want it, it can have a major impact on guests. It'll be the kind of thing that you could talk about for a long time. And everything is thoughtfully produced and curated to create a moment that forges life. I tell you what, the one thing is they go for event development, event innovation, activation, capturing, and creating chemistry. So like when you go, think about how many of these events you've been to. And he brought that booth to a couple of the station parties back in the day. And the photos are great. I still have a bunch of them. And it was founded by industry experts who specialize in creating innovative and cutting edge events, and over a decade experience. And they've got a rich knowledge of event activations and unforgettable moments. That's what they're trying to create. And they do photography, videography, a DJ, and of course those photo booths. And it's all the kind of thing that will make you remember that event forever. Go to pickmeevents.com and come out on the 26th and hang out with Michael, because he will be there as part of Pick Me. So Flea mentioning Randy Johnson destroying that seagull with a pitch was the most badass pitch in MLB history. Pretty much up there. Yeah. I'll never forget that. That was
the bird disintegrated.
Yeah. Of course, I'm sure Pete will be listening and say, "Yeah, you're terrible people." It's like, "Oh, we'll go back and listen to some of our old podcasts." We said a lot worse than that about animals. So hey, since last week, we talked a lot about the college football implosion in the Pac-12, basically, and it finally did happen the Friday after we did the show last week, with Oregon and Washington going to the Big Ten. The Arizona schools and Utah going to the Big 12. Today, I guess the ACC had a meeting about bringing in Stanford and Cal. And I think the bigger concern from what I was reading today is there was no way they were going to be able to vote them in, because there's too many of these schools that went out on their own. And, they're not going to vote in new teams just to try to stabilize.
Like Florida State, we've talked about Florida State wanting to be out. Why is Florida State gonna vote new teams and try and strengthen the ACC when they're looking to get out of there? Like it doesn't make sense. Like it wouldn't make sense. And I don't know who else besides Florida State. I'm sure there's other teams that are probably not thrilled with the ACC TV deal, specifically when they look around at what the Big Ten and the SEC are getting. But yeah, there's no reason to add teams to something that you're trying to get out of, unless there's some sort of deal where Florida State says, "Hey, you want our vote? Here's how you get it. You let us go. You promise us we can get out. We'll help you get these other teams in."
Or you pony up another $30 million a year just for us.
Yeah,
I would do it for that. But no, and I mean, the whole Stanford and Cal thing really made no sense for them. Not just, I mean, geography doesn't really matter anymore. I don't think any of us care. Although for the ACC, and it was interesting to hear what the SEC commissioner said about that. It's like, we don't need to be in 4 time zones. We've got an international brand where we are. And, you know, the ACC would be basically, you'd have 2 orphans on the coast and they bring no money. And that was the big issue. It's like, well, if you're expanding, you're just expanding to expand. They're not adding to your TV deal, which is one thing that the Big 12 did that was really smart. Was like, for every Power 5 team that they brought in, they got another 30 million share from the TV deal. So they're not having to split up what the other guys are making. And, you know, this would not really make any monetary sense for them whatsoever.
Well, and like what you saw the Big Ten do with Oregon and Washington, they brought them in at basically a half share for the rest of this TV deal. So Oregon and Washington looked at their options and said, well, we can stick out here in the Pac-12 and probably end up getting sucked into the Mountain West and have an Apple TV streaming deal, or we can take a half share for the next 8 years, which would still be more than they were making on their Pac-12 deal. And then in 8 years, they can get a full piece of the pie. And you know, Washington and Oregon are deserving of that. Like those programs will bring money. They will bring, you know, television sets to the table a lot more than, you know, like the Northwesterns of the world. So
right.
It's not like they're a burden on you. But the fact that they were like, the Big Ten said, listen, we're not going to give you a full. You're not a made guy until you get through this TV deal. And then, you know, then they'll crown them. That's a good way to do it, because again, these other schools were like, do we need Washington and Oregon? Like, we're making good money now. Do we really need them? And the Big Ten was smart enough to say, in 8 years, it'll be nice to have them. But until this TV deal's up, let's give them a little taste.
Yeah, and I mean that Apple TV deal was just, I mean, it was just pure speculation, basically. It's like, we'll pay you this much, but we got to get a bunch more subscriptions. And how many more subscriptions are you going to get with a league that doesn't have USC and UCLA and is sort of falling apart? And you know, I think once Colorado was gone, that kind of, you know, that not that Colorado is this gigantic brand, but suddenly it's like, well, what are we getting with this?
The first domino, and even like the Arizona schools, like, and by the way, the Big 12 is the best basketball conference in the country. Like the new formed Big 12 is going to be awesome for basketball. It's still going to be, you know, the 4th best football conference. I don't think that was going to change, but it's way interesting in basketball, which is exciting to me. Like it's going to be fun to watch Kansas and Arizona and Houston and Baylor. Like there's a bunch of powerful, like the Big 12 is better in basketball than they were 2 years ago. And they've been arguably the best basketball conference for a while. So it's the Big 12 is really coming up on that front. I think they understood that the football was what it was, and it was going to be enough to keep them afloat. It's going to be enough to keep them as an auto bid for whenever they start throwing out auto bids. But that conference is really going to make some hay in basketball the way it's set up now.
Oh, I think it's got a chance to be the best basketball conference we've ever seen. I mean, if all these teams stay at the level they're at, and I already thought they were pretty close to being the best. You know, what they were going to have this year was going to be pretty close to being the best, if not the best. But even without Texas and Oklahoma, you've got high quality blue blood programs in there, and it's going to be pretty awesome. But as far as football goes, I think the only difference between the Big 12 and the ACC I think there's more depth in football in the Big 12, but they don't have a Florida State or a Clemson.
No, you don't.
And
They don't have a brand that screams this is the team that could be the champion. Like there's not even TCU last year when TCU made it to the championship. There was never any thought that TCU was going to win the championship. Like, and
no.
if somebody says they thought TCU was going to win the championship, they're either lying or they just weren't watching college football. But it was known that like the question was, could TCU cover a couple touchdowns, and they couldn't. So I think when you look at the current Big 12, you say, okay, which one of these teams could you see sometime in the next 5 years winning a football national championship? There isn't one. And when you had Texas and Oklahoma, there was always that hope.
Yeah.
But, you know, you're right. The ACC, the big difference is they've got schools, Miami even to an extent, that have a pedigree of championships, you know, but Cal schools, and it's really easy to picture a world where Florida State or Clemson wins a title in the next 5. You can't pick one of those out of the Big 12.
Yeah, it would take a fluke run, but it you know, like TCU had. But the reality is, and I have a funny story about that because Max sent us out to the game with a bunch of his TCU partners, and so I mean, that stadium's amazing, by the way. But the problem is like TCU, great story. You can get in there and you can pull off the upset on Michigan if everything goes right, like a couple of pick sixes and things like that. But it's hard to pull games like that back to back against a Michigan and a Georgia. And the difference between those two teams, you could tell 2 minutes in that it was going to be ugly. And it was. But my favorite part of it was we were with all these TCU people, and one of the ladies was a wife of one of the defensive coaches. And at halftime, she's just in tears. I'm like, well, I guess so. I can kind of.
They'll do that to you.
Yeah. But
and I think they're going to do that to a lot of teams this year too. By the way,
yeah, they're going to be really good.
Make a lot of DC's wives cry over the course of the season.
Excuse me. Anyway, yeah. So I'm not one of those guys that is going to sit here and mourn the Pac-12. I did like Pac-12 After Dark. You know, that was always fun. But, you know, maybe I'll watch Mountain West. Who knows? But, yeah, there's games to bet on there. But I also think
and there's always the Hawaii comeback game. Like the get right game. If you had a bad day betting college football, put it all on Hawaii.
Yeah, that's always my get out game. My favorite was when we were in London that time. And I was betting on Hawaii, and it was like, I don't know, 4 a.m. in England. It's late enough when they play here.
Yeah.
I mean, it was almost the next morning. It might have been 5. I don't remember the exact time, but I'm sitting there on my little computer going, I gotta get on Hawaii before they start. So, yeah. But I mean, in total, though, I don't. All the people, this is doom and gloom for college football. I mean, no, I think we've created better conferences. I really do. I think the Big Ten has gotten better. I think the SEC got better, and with more brands. And now you've got, like you talked about, all those schools. You could see Texas jumping up and making a run one year. You can see Oklahoma jumping up and making a run one year. I don't know that we see that with Mississippi State and Mississippi. I mean, they've had good seasons.
I think it gets more rare. Like, and those teams have made runs in the past. I think those days might be gone. You know, when they keep adding all these new squads, it's going to be a lot tougher to have those runs.
But it would be interesting. I'd like to see the ACC survive because I would like to have 4 viable conferences. But you know, if Florida State leaves, then you know Clemson's leaving too.
Yeah.
And, you know, they would be good fits in the SEC.
Yeah.
And you put them on that end, and suddenly I think the next thing we wind up talking about is which of the bottom feeders in the Big Ten do you kick out when the next deal comes?
Rutgers is the obvious answer because Rutgers doesn't play like the idea that they were getting the New York market, that was the big plan for them. And they've done nothing. They still have like crummy facilities. They don't act like a Big Ten program. Like they haven't had the success. They had a quick taste of success under Schiano, and then they turned back into dog shit. Like it's to me, that's the obvious answer. And probably Northwestern. I mentioned them earlier. Those are the kind of schools that's like, man, like it's nice to have them added to the academic profile. But when you've already got, Ohio State, which is a great school, you've got USC, and like you've got all these good schools already. Yeah, do we really need a school that's just for the smart kids? Does the SEC really need Vanderbilt, or would it be
Vanderbilt,
better to
yeah.
have Florida State? Like it's obvious. It would be better to have Florida State. So, and the SEC, they don't really care about their academic profile anyway. The Pac-12,
No.
the Pac-12 and the Big Ten were the two that were always kind of about academic profiles. Like, oh, we would never take such a school. Now it's, oh, okay, I guess we'll take them. We'll take what we can get. But yeah, the SEC's never been like pinky up about you got to have a certain academic standard. They don't care. Just make money, win football games.
Yeah, I think the academic standard in the SEC is, can you spell cat?
Maybe.
It's either a K or a C. I don't know which. You have to tell me, and then you can be in.
How many T's?
But the thing about Rutgers too, and a friend of mine from Jersey was explaining this to me the other day. It's like they already had that market with Penn State. Penn State has a huge New York fan base, and now my daughter will tell you the academics are good, but whatever, But yeah, she's going to graduate this year. Can you believe that?
That's crazy. That is crazy.
Yeah. So but that's the thing. You already had that market with Penn State. You didn't really need Rutgers. And you thought with them getting more money that they would develop the facilities and they would develop a bigger following. And you're right, it just hadn't happened. They haven't run it very well.
Well, so again, I don't know that these schools are locked in for some time. I don't know that the Big Ten's going to like kick people out. But if they ever get to that, that's going to be the first name that comes up on the list. I'm almost certain.
Yeah, but now the thing is now you'd have to be able to get better programs, right? So that's where you might dip into the Big 12 at some point, or
but they can survive with 16 teams instead of 18. Like
right.
all you're doing is taking that pie and just making everybody's slice that much bigger. Like it's just it's incremental, but you don't need to replace them. You like the whole pie doesn't need to get bigger. Everybody's individual piece needs to get bigger. And if you don't bring enough to the table to warrant your piece of pie, why should you get it? And that's, again, like I said, that was the original demise of the Big 12, was Nebraska and A&M and Colorado being pissed off that Texas and Oklahoma got more pie than anybody else. And it's like when you get the box of chicken and Texas and Oklahoma come in the bucket and they get out their breast and a thigh and they say, all right, you guys get the legs and wings, divvy this up. And like I really think in Nebraska's mind, they're like, hey, we're freaking Nebraska. We deserve a breast and a thigh. And Texas and Oklahoma said, no, friend, this isn't 1996. You take that leg and you like it. And they were like, all right, well, we're out of here. And you see where Nebraska's at competitively now. So all these schools have to weigh like, well, we can leave, but are we going to win there? That's the tale as old as time, is like, careful what you wish for. And some of these schools don't really care. Like they just want to, like Colorado, they don't care. Like they just want to make money. They want to cover their bills and make some money. Okay, the Pac-12 is falling apart. We're out of here. Cool. More money? Cool. Well, how are you going to do in football? It doesn't matter. We won one game last year in the Pac-12. We suck at football. It doesn't matter. We just want this bag. Everybody's got different priorities. A&M sort of seen that too. Like it's tough to win in the SEC. Like you got a lot more guaranteed money. It was a big boon for your recruiting and all that stuff. That's great. But man, it is hard to win in the SEC consistently, especially if you're like, A&M was probably a second tier program in the Big 12, and they're probably a third tier program in the SEC. That's a tough pill to swallow, but is it worth the bag? I'd say for A&M probably was, especially with hindsight being what it is, and now we know where the Big 12's at. They made the clear right choice.
I don't know if you saw this story. It's kind of a insider thing, speaking of Aggie. But did you see they had to shut down their 12th man fund after the IRS hit them?
No.
Which, they're trying to raise NIL collectives, but they're also a charity foundation, right? So getting the NIL money put that at risk. The IRS wrote them a letter, and so they had to shut the whole damn
Whoops.
thing down.
Yeah.
Yeah, which another story for another time. But yeah, I think what people don't realize is and it's not just about success. I mean, you get in a conference like that, and A&M, to me, yeah, they're making a ton more money. They probably have a higher profile than they had when they were in the Big 12. But yeah, being competitive, you can go buy what you think is one of the best coaches in the world, and you can have the number one recruiting class in allegedly history and pay all those kids off, and then have a losing record.
Yeah, that's what happens
And
when you run an offense like that was designed in 1991 and hasn't been tweaked.
yeah, exactly. And it'll be interesting to see if they actually let Bobby Petrino do some of his
For
stuff
sure.
because, yeah. All right. One more with you, if you don't mind, but I want to tell you about Dr. Linville, who is my good friend and does an amazing job with your hair. No anesthesia, just numbing medicine, minimal pain. If you're tired of being bald, or even if you just got a bald spot, you want to get filled, it's a great procedure. I had it done. It's held up really well. 95 to 99% of the grafts take because they're handled and prepared safely. And I went through it, and it was easy. He comes up with an individualized plan for each patient. Maybe you just want to, a couple of little spots taken care of. Well, it'll only be $4 a graft. How about that? And if you go to hairspecialisthouston.com, book a consultation, and let them know you heard about it on the Falconcast, your consult fee will be waived. That's a $150 value. And the cool part about that is it's not just for guys. I mean, if ladies want to get it done, you got a little spot in your hair that you don't like, you can do that. Or if you want any kind of work done, men or women, he's one of the best plastic surgeons in the city. He's a great guy. You hear him on the show most Mondays when he's in town, and he will take care of you. That's hairspecialisthouston.com. All right, AJ, any MMA that I should be aware of coming up?
There's fights this weekend. It's a pretty shitty card from a competitive standpoint, but that doesn't mean there's not money to be made. The co-main event is Cub Swanson and Hakeem Dawodu, and I like over 2.5 rounds. It's minus 125. It's probably going to be like a pure kickboxing match. And I said this last week about Bahamondes and Klein. Like when you've got two guys who are pure kickboxers who aren't once you're not worried about being taken down, it's much more rare for knockouts to happen because you can defend your head in a way that you can't when you're worried about being taken down. Neither of these guys want to wrestle, and Swanson's chin is shakier than it was in his younger days, and Dawodu can crack, but he's mostly a counterpuncher. He lets his opponent dictate pace. 7 of his 9 fights have gone the distance, and one of the 2 that didn't, he lost by submission. So he's just a careful guy. He's lost some like split decisions that he had no business losing because he just doesn't really let go. So I like over 2.5 rounds. You get around minus 120. If you, at whatever your outs are, if you're listening in Texas, maybe you have to go across the border. I don't know what you're up to.
Yeah, most people just wander over to Lake Charles.
There you go.
There you go. Yeah, I mean, the other thing I just wanted you to talk about the podcast network a little bit, remind everybody what you're doing, and then I have one more item for you before I cast you aside, sir.
Yeah, Pregame Podcast Network. We've got a show straight out of Vegas AM. You can just look it up on wherever you get your podcasts. Straight out of Vegas AM, Monday through Friday. It's up around 6 a.m. Central Time every morning. So if you're on your drive, you want to hear about what's going on in the sports betting world for that day. Straight out of Vegas AM, a good way to do it. I don't know what's on the air in Houston these days at 6 a.m., but hopefully what we're doing can compete with that. So give it a listen and check out pregame.com if you want to grab some picks for the fights or we've got a lot of defense doing these pregames. You don't totally get it. I put my money in these preseason football games, but there's to master. Check them out, pregame.com.
Yeah, we used to have Fezzik on the show every now and then, and he would come on and have picks for the preseason games, and he would nail them. And
Yeah.
it was like, yeah. It's like, I don't know how you do it, brother. But, all right, so I always have to have something for you to make fun of me for. And
I don't believe it.
besides my general. just besides my general life, right? But yeah, and I'm getting to be more of a hermit. I am turning into more of a Hoffman here. It's like I'm rarely going out. Like this weekend, I I went over to the Phoenix for a little bit because I needed to work, and the dog was jumping all over me. And for some reason, a 60-pound husky putting her paws on your hands while you're trying to type
Not ideal.
makes your job a little difficult. So I went over to the Phoenix and worked over there, but I just sat by myself the whole time. And then we had our band practice Sunday for the fundraiser. But other than that, like I might walk across the street and have one beer, but I'm not going out anymore. And I was telling my friend today, it's like the longer I go without dating anybody, I think I may just quit. I may just be done with it.
Have you
I don't.
have you downloaded any dating apps? Have you tried any like a Tinder or anything like that?
I did. I tried one, and that was my stretch of where I went out with about 5 women, and they were all disasters.
Damn.
Now, I will say this: maybe I'm the disaster.
Chances are good.
But
Like if history speaks, you know.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I mean, it's just the women my age just kind of irritate me.
Oh, well, don't date women your age. That's gross.
But I can't date 80-year-olds. I
Well,
mean, that's a hip breaker.
Date a little younger than your age.
Well, yeah, but look, I'm a hideous beast. They're not going to date me.
Yeah,
Guess what? Women in the age range that I would like are looking for men younger.
you just pay their bar tab, and they're like the chicks love
I
that.
do that.
Mm.
I do that.
Well, if you're paying the bar tab and you still can't get laid, I don't know what to tell you, Freddie. Like feels like
All
you're.
right, well, part of it though, I think part of it is I'm not trying, and I'm not going anywhere where I would meet women. I'm just kind of, well, BC said I'm sure he's not lying and had one beer along with 6 shots. I know, but I mean, like I stay for an hour, right? Now that may be 3 shots.
I think this is your big issue, Fred. Like sometimes when you go out for casual drinks, you have more casual drinks than you should have. Like you've got to learn to slow play it. You got to learn to take, 15 minutes to drink a beer. Like that's the way to do. That way you're not like sloshed by the time you start talking to some chick, because that's not going to get it there. So just slow roll a little bit, buddy.
Well, I have been, but most of the places I go now, it's just my neighborhood bar, and there's not women there, right?
Oh.
And that's kind of my safe.
Oh, you live in Montrose now, right?
Yeah.
Well,
no, not switching teams.
Yeah.
I know how it looks.
Do you want to get laid or not, Fred? Do you want to get laid or not?
I don't know. Not right now. I don't really care. But yeah, I mean, I know how it looks when I'm walking my dog in Montrose and I'm by myself. Yes, I know what it looks like. It's not a now, if I were to switch teams, I've always said I'm a gay 8. Well, I'm older now. I'm probably a gay 7. But I mean, maybe the gay men like me.
Okay.
But I'm not interested. So there. I have one team.
We'll see. When give you 6 more months of loneliness, we'll see if your tune's changing at all.
Oh no, 6 more months. It's sex robot time. I'll finally get my sex robot.
Oh, we lost Freddie. There we go.
Friggin' phone call, spam risk. It's like spam risk should know what I'm doing at 4:48 on a Thursday, but that's okay.
Obviously.
Virginia Buttonweed says, get Dell's dad to give advice on a mail order. Helga from Latvia is dying to meet.
Yeah.
Oh boy, it's funny. It's just like, I mean, the last few years I've essentially been living alone anyway. We're separated in the same house, so I'm going on about 4 to 5 years of being on my own, and I kind of like it. And it's like, if I want to do the podcast at 4 o'clock, I can do it at 4 o'clock. If I want to walk across the street and have a beer, I can do it. Nobody says a damn word. So, and
live your best life, buddy.
Yeah. So I'm just having fun watching football now tonight. Get to watch the Texans, and kind of curious to see C.J. Stroud. I know we don't learn much from this, especially offensively, because you're going up against vanilla defenses. but I just kind of want to see what he looks like. I want to see what Will Anderson looks like on the field. That's all.
You know what's crazy about CJ Stroud? And I think this is more of a commentary on our society in general. I see people who are like, I like CJ Stroud. I think the Texans make a big jump because they've got a mobile quarterback now. CJ Stroud is not mobile. CJ Stroud is generally slow. Like, if you watch him, like, just because he's black doesn't mean he runs fast. I saw him at Ohio State. He does not run fast.
Well,
It's an odd phenomena that they're like, oh, the Texans have a mobile quarterback now. They really don't.
well, what
They just
I
have
would
a black quarterback.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair. But what I would say to that is, I think he can run. I just don't think uh, when he does run and he gets going in a straight line, he's fine until somebody's about to hit him, and you could just see him cringe, right? So that's why he stays in the pocket. And I don't think he's ever going to be a guy that he's not quick enough out of the pocket to that's the guys who can really run. You know, they'll look up and everything's covered, and then they're past the line of scrimmage before you can know it. And I think he's a guy who's not going to get past the line of scrimmage very often. Now, if he does, he's pretty. I think when he gets straight line, but I don't think he's a skilled runner. Is one way I would put it. And
Well, and also the guys that have the most success running, like outside of, I mean, there's guys like Jalen Hurts, and he's like an unfair comparison to
right,
normal quarterbacks, or Kyler Murray even. But like when you see Josh Allen and Justin Herbert, those guys and the success they have running the ball, and to a lesser extent now Patrick Mahomes, but early Patrick Mahomes, the reason why they had success running is because the whole defense was so terrified of them taking the top off that
right,
there's just open lanes and there's no safeties that can come into the box and help. Like they just don't exist. So that's when those guys like Josh, and plus those guys, all Josh Allen, Justin Herbert, Patrick Mahomes, those are big boys. They're hard to tackle, and they can move. So those are the guys who are a real problem. But until CJ Stroud really proves that he can take the top off a defense, I don't
yeah.
think you're going to see him running at all.
No, I think like he'll be a three run a game quarterback, right? Like most quarterbacks, normal quarterbacks are.
There'll be scrambles. They won't be designed
yeah,
runs.
yeah. And I don't think you should be doing design runs with him. And it's interesting to me about Mahomes. Mahomes could always run, but the one thing that they've gotten smart about the last few years, he doesn't do it much in the regular season. But once you get to, and teams don't expect it, and then all of a sudden you get the playoffs, and there he goes.
One of the things we started checking out was like Josh Allen. And when Josh Allen's playing against, the Lions, he's not running the ball. When Josh Allen's playing against the Chiefs or the Patriots, you're seeing him take off because he's doing whatever it takes to win. Like he's not going to sacrifice himself in games that he doesn't need to, but in those close games and the games against the other top teams in the AFC, he's going to take off and run. I think most quarterbacks are probably that way.
Yeah. Paranoid Panda, I never take the top off. And Buchanan mentions Aaron Rodgers' mobility. Aaron Rodgers early in his career did the same thing. He ran a lot. And he still can run a little bit, but he doesn't because, he's trying to preserve himself.
But I think Aaron Rodgers is faster than CJ Stroud. Like if they raced today, I think Aaron Rodgers would win.
Hell, I think he might be faster than CJ Stroud, but but what you need from guys who scramble, you don't need the 30-yard runs like Josh Allen can do. You need 5 or 6 for a first down.
Yeah,
basically what you need. And I don't know how much of that he's going to be able to do. It is. You're right. It's like everybody's like, oh, he must be mobile. One of the least most mobile quarterbacks I ever saw was Warren Moon.
Oh yeah. Yeah, he wasn't running.
He was a statue. He couldn't even get a quarterback sneak. But guess what? He's in the Hall of Fame. So, not that the whole C.J. Stroud thing. I wanted Bryce Young. I thought Bryce Young was a better player, and we'll see. I mean, he's a small, but they screwed that up, and there wasn't anything they could do about it. Realistically, I think that I was never wanting C.J. Stroud at all. But then right before the draft, when all the odds came in with Will Levis as the number 2 pick, I'm like, oh my God, just take CJ Stroud, please. I'll settle for it.
Yeah, I don't think very highly of Will Levis either. So I know there's a lot of people in Houston who did. I did not. I didn't really love any of these quarterbacks. Like to me, everybody was like, oh, be so great to have the first pick and get Bryce Young. And I'm like you, like I like Bryce Young, but I can't imagine Bryce Young going 3 years in a row without like some sort of major injury. Like he's just not built. He's not built for the NFL. But so there was no quarterback in this draft that I was like, oh yeah, I'd really pay for that guy. I'd really like mortgage my future for that guy. It didn't make much sense to me.
Yeah, in the end, I would have been more interested in a second round Hendon Hooker kind of guy who, coming off the injury, a guy who really improved his team when he was out there and has all the, a little older, but I wouldn't have invested a high pick in him, a first round pick, but, second round. And now you're going to have to wait on him a little bit,
but you're also, I guess you're at the same time, D'Amico's got this, he's new. He wants to establish his identity. He doesn't want to be a loser right off he certainly doesn't want to be as bad as they were last year. And if you're waiting until the second round to get a quarterback, he's probably not an instant impact guy. And the other option is Davis Mills, and you're stuck right where you are. So I get why they did it. None of these guys felt special to me.
Yeah, and we'll see. I don't think. I mean, I think he's got a chance to be good. And if he's good, and D'Amico builds a great defense, and he can go out there and play at a decent level, then I think they got a chance to be all right. A couple of people were asking earlier if we saw the Manziel documentary. Have you seen that?
I haven't seen it yet. No, I haven't seen it yet. I'm going to watch it this weekend. I'm going to get down on it.
Yeah,
have you watched it?
No.
I think it's only an hour.
Yeah, well, when I found that out, I decided to watch it because
I'll get into it.
I really have zero interest in Johnny Manziel at this stage, and really never did in the past. But if it's an hour, I can stomach it. So. All right. Well, guess what? That's going to wrap up AJ for today. Man, I appreciate you, and sorry for the lack of headphones. I'll make sure we get that taken care of from now on.
All good, man.
Yeah, it is weird. It's like, I've got a bunch of stuff in boxes in the closet, and, probably stuff I shouldn't even brought but she didn't want it in the house.
Listen, when in your case, it seemed like you just she's like, you've got one box, fill it with stuff and leave. So,
well, it only took us one trip in an SUV and a truck to get all my stuff out of there, and mostly it's like the amplifier behind me there, and my guitars.
And then did she take back the SUV and the truck?
Of course, no, the truck wasn't hers.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, no, she got the SUV, she got the land, she got everything. It's because. I didn't follow any of my own advice, and that's
Freddie.
And how long
you didn't learn the first 3 times.
The first 2.5 times.
First 2.5 times. That's right.
Yeah. I've learned after this one, which is just don't even try. Just give up.
That is the word of the day. Don't try.
All right, brother. I'll talk to you soon, man. Thanks again. Fun stuff.
All right, man. Take care.
All right, guys. I have to tell you about Lanham Industries, and hopefully I'll have Lawyer Dave pop on here in a second, and if not, I'll tell you about him on the way out. Southern Living Cleaning is the Lake Livingston area leader in providing quality service for your vacation home. And if you want to get a place on Lake Livingston, and hopefully I'm going to be able to do that at some point here in the next year, they give you consultation services to find the right home and location, decor and theme, price points. It's your one-stop shop for all your home service needs out there. They've got cleaning, lawn care, laundry, maintenance, inventory management, and property management services available. A great, highly trained and dedicated crew, and Andrew and his staff are just fantastic. Veteran owned and operated. Give them a call, 936-581-6166 or 346-773-9577, or go online at lanhamindustries.com. We'll have a couple of new advertisers coming up, and I can't even read the whole Optimatron thing, but he says Fred looks drunk AF. Now, this is my natural state of being, man. And I'm at about a 2 today. We had a couple margaritas at lunch. That's it. So, and that was a couple hours ago. I will get drunk after the show. I'm gonna sit down, and you know what though? This is another thing. It's about I don't go out much anymore. Usually I would go over to the bar to watch the Texans game, but I'm just gonna sit here at home with the puppy until she starts being an asshole, and then that's when I walk across the street to the bar. But yeah, and I'm just looking forward to seeing some of the players, seeing some of the, we can't read too much into scheme right now, And the one thing I will say about preseason football, if your quarterback sucks, that's a bad sign because they're not out there defending. So, all right, I got to tell you about Lawyer Dave since he has not shown up. And you all know about Lawyer Dave. He's the best, and we hang out all the time. If I need a lawyer, he's my guy, and I've needed a lawyer, and I probably will again. If you give him a call, 713-626-8900, does personal injury, but also can help you with any other legal problem you might have. And if you're in a car accident, which you will be, he's the guy that will deal with the insurance companies so that you don't have to. And the best thing about Lawyer Dave, he risks everything on you. You don't pay a dime until you win. And with Lawyer Dave, you're going to win a lot. And give him a call, 713-626-8900. Make sure that he'll answer your questions. If he can't do what you need, he'll get you to the right person. So that's the guy. And if you need a lawyer, you better dial Dave. Okay, we're going to do our final thoughts today. And we have a really strange one here that, so this is more animal stuff, okay? And this is a lady in Texas. And she was out. Now it's dropped on me, so bear with me. She was out mowing her lawn. And we've talked about animals attacking people a lot lately. Well, how about this? She got attacked by two animals at once. One of them was a snake. We know we don't like snakes. And at the same time, a hawk attacked her. And the snake wrapped itself around her. And what had happened was the hawk was carrying the snake, right? So I'm not going to say the hawk's innocent here, but I'm gonna say it was an intentional attack, so not a intentional assault. But the hawk swooped down and tried to retrieve it and managed getting her arm, and chunked it up pretty good too. So it's one thing to get attacked by an animal; it's another thing to get double teamed. But also, how unlucky is it that you're standing in a place where a snake gets dropped from the sky? The other story, and we've been talking about, there've been a lot of bears on the show, but this one's near Lake Tahoe, and his name is Hank the Tank. And apparently, he's a large black bear who is responsible for at least 21 home invasions. And, I don't know if you live in an area where there's bears, if you could take extra precautions. But he became famous on the internet for being Hank the Tank. And frankly, they thought it was a bunch of bears, but DNA testing confirmed that the bear captured on Friday, who was formerly known as Bear 64F, was a female behind at least 21 cases of breaking and entering. So now we're doing DNA tests on bears. What the hell? So anyway, Virginia Button, black bears are harmless unless they're on coke. Yeah, cocaine bear. But this one, just breaking into houses, scaring people to death. All right, thank you guys so much. I appreciate you for tuning in today. We'll be back on Monday. I've got Kua Genti's going to join me, so we'll have a little comedy, and working on my other guests for you that'll be sports. So we'll mix Monday up with sports and comedy, and hopefully this thing continues to grow. Keep telling your friends about us that aren't on Facebook and Twitter. That's word of mouth is the only way these things work. And that's how we built the Blitz, and that's how we're going to do our best to build this. So I hope everybody has an awesome weekend. And until Monday, stay sportsy, Gulf Coast badasses.